Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Bugasiswe, where we have real talk about real life issues. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Harriet Lucas, and I'm an ex offender or an ex criminal. And I've taken it upon myself to speak out about issues concerning the reintegration of offenders back into society. I greet each and every one of you, acknowledging especially our President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. And then also, I would love to share with you today some interviews that I've done with regards to the issue of recidivism. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term, what it means simply is when criminals are released from prison, they come back outside and they re-offend, they commit another crime, and are rearrested and placed back in jail. So in South Africa, we have one of the highest recidivism rates, standing at 90%, which I feel is a cause for concern. But before we continue with that, have a look at these interviews. What are your thoughts around the issue of DCS or government? Do you think that they provide enough assistance for offenders when they come out?
In a broader perspective, I've noticed that the government and the Department of DCS, they don't play that huge role that they're supposed to play. The reason I'm saying this is, take for an example, the correctional services have got lots of work that can be done by the ex-offenders who comes there because they know everything. Take for an example, as much the correctional services have schools where those schools are other offenders that teach those people. Why can't the Department of Correctional Services, when the person is being released and they know very well the person has qualifications, why can't they employ that person to those schools so that they teach those fellow inmates as the ones that teach other inmates? But at the end, the credit are taken by the officials of correctional services, which is something that is wrong. And the department itself, the government itself, it doesn't play that role because whenever you are released, they say to you, we have gone through the process of rehabilitation. But at the end, whenever you are looking for a job, they still prefer you to say the issue of criminal record. And hence you have been serving your sentence, expecting that whenever you have served your sentence, other things will be better than you. But now the government at the DCS doesn't do anything. For instance, they've got other corrections that they do have farms, they do have schools, they do have plenty of things. Why can't they employ those the fellow inmates who are from the center?
The parole systems that are in place when inmates come out, do you feel that they are being assisted by parole officers in terms of finding a work, finding NGOs, and helping them with their social issues? Do you feel that the parole office assists in that way?
No, the parole office they doesn't assist. The only thing that a parole office I've noticed that they consider your file when you are still in a process that you are going out. When you are out, they doesn't even bother with anything. But when you are there, they will ask your contact numbers of the family or contact number whatsoever. But they don't even do follow up. They don't even call you. They don't even ask how's your things. You see, and they don't even try to help you where they need it. Even those people that they provide you with social workers whatsoever, these people as well, they doesn't even call you. You are the ones that you are owned when you're out. Those people are no longer having any help in those things.
Agree with me if I say that there are not enough NGOs that is assisting ex-offenders?
Differ with you all those things.
Okay.
Reason is the department and the parole board system. The sad part is maybe they don't engage the NGOs. If they were engaging the NGOs, whenever they say it's a sitting of your parole, why can't they call such an NGOs in order to involve themselves in suing that? Here it's Harriet. Harriet is left with 5 months or 6 months to go outside. So I don't know what Harriet is going to do. But if they can involve them in such a way, those people they might Harriet when it's go outside, Harriet is going to work in my NGO. Others will say Harriet will want to control. So, but now the problem is they don't engage those people. That's why we have experienced such things.
Point. Thank you. And then lastly, I just want to know, do you perhaps have a message for um, other ex-offenders that are maybe facing difficulties on the outside?
All I can say to them is the problem is let's have our own platform where most of us ex-offenders, we communicate, we advise each other, we know where we come from. And some of us, we have gone to school. We can start our own things. We can start plenty of things of us because we've got qualifications. So the only thing that is needed, we should have our own platform where we communicate, where we advise each other. Others do have businesses. Others have wrote books like you, Harriet. Others are planning to do plenty of things. But now the problem is we don't have that networking. So if we can have that platform of ex-offenders, we can do much, much better.
Do you think that government or NGOs or DCS that they are doing enough with regards to helping and assisting
I
ex-offenders?
think when we are inside and we're about to come out, they try their best to give us feedback. But once you come out, they are nowhere to be heard, nowhere to be seen. You have no feedback. They don't even find out how you are going about and how you are living. All they're interested in is that you are signing. And that's about what I can think at the present moment.
So, as you can see, not much confidence on the part of ex offenders when it comes to support once released from prison. I could have told you that myself from my own experience, but I think it's also more authentic hearing it from the horse's mouth. And it is just a tip of the iceberg. There are so many others going through the very same struggle. And I feel it's a huge contributing factor towards the rate of recidivism in our country. When criminals are released from prison, hardly anything is done in terms of helping them to get back on their feet. In fact, the struggle is so much more worse than what it was prior to going to prison. How do we solve this problem? Is there a solution? Well, if you are one of those people who has an opinion or you have a mind to say that things will never change and everything's going from bad to worse and there's no hope for us, well, I'm here to tell you that you are part of the problem. The problem is not going to solve itself. It's going to take a collective effort from all of us to change the situation. I feel that, yes, there are many atrocities taking place all over the world. I mean, we've got the war in Israel with Palestine. We've got war in Congo. There's so many I can mention. Hunger, starvation. The, the list is endless. But I'm a firm believer that in order for us to help anybody, we need to help ourselves first. Because you cannot serve from an empty vessel. And crime, as it stands in our country, affects all our lives. No matter where on the rung of success you are, it affects us in a very negative way, especially considering that brutality is one of the major factors of crime in our country. It's very brutal at times, most times actually. So I understand why people would want to distance themselves from it. But in order to address the issue and to solve the problem of recidivism and to lower our crime rate, will definitely call for all of us to join together and make the effort. It's not going to happen by itself. It's easy to pass the buck and say, let somebody else deal with it until it affects you personally. So let us avoid that. And one of the ways to do that is through speaking out, bringing awareness around these issues, and schooling ourselves. It is so very vital to have knowledge on these issues because you never know where in life it may call for you to apply that knowledge. You may be in a situation where you could save a life. So I do think it's vital that we have these discussions. Hence, I've started this channel. So, with that said, I want to question what the efficacy is of the policies that are in place concerning the rehabilitation of offenders. How effective is it if we have almost a 90% recidivism rate? It is very alarming to know that on a daily basis, every day, there are inmates being released from our prisons who comes into society, goes straight back into crime, gets rearrested and goes back to jail. I feel, and I strongly suggest that one of the solutions, the key solutions to this, would be to implement or to make use of social workers, psychiatrists, and psychologists. And why do I say this? Well, I do believe that the majority of offenders, criminals, people behind bars, and ex offenders, those who have served their time and have been released from prison, I do believe that a majority of them have suffered from childhood traumas that they have not healed from, that are bottled up, that have not been dealt with, and they have not found closure simply because they haven't had an outlet. They've not been given a space to speak or address those issues. And it's so vitally important to have a willing ear. Yes, we all have problems, and we all have to deal with those problems the best way we know how. But it's not all of us that are fortunate enough to have that one person who believes in you, that one person that you can go to and speak to. In South Africa, broken households are at the order of the day. It is so common in South Africa, where you will find a household where there's either no mother or no father. Sometimes both parents are absent. You'll find households where alcohol and drug abuse are at the order of the day. Households where the environment is so toxic and very negative. And even you'll find that caregivers are the abusers. And in those instances where there's no outlet to speak about bottled to whatever is bottled up, that is when hopelessness sets in and desperation takes over. A child who grows up constantly ignored and told to keep quiet is much likely to be disruptive, destructive, and rebellious later on in life, as opposed to a child whose feelings and opinions are made a priority. That child is more likely to be successful and become respectful and law abiding. The same principle applies to every person in life. Everybody wants to feel valued and appreciated. But when you do not have a space to feel valued and appreciated, your situation becomes such that you feel you don't care and you can do whatever you want because nobody cares anyway. In many instances, it's a cry for help, it's a cry for attention, but it's not seen that way. I know for a fact that in prison, prisoners are not allowed to feel anything. They are not allowed to complain, even though the complaints are many, but the root causes of the pain and the suffering that they go through is not addressed. The complaints mainly centers around the poor food, the cold water, no electricity, those type of things. But the things that really matters are not addressed. And I feel that those issues can only be addressed through professionals, people that are trained. Because even in life, when you and your partner have marriage problems, issues, what do? You go to a marriage counselor. When somebody has a drug problem, what do? They go to a place where there are trained professionals that can help them. Through what? Through dialogue. I cannot overemphasize the importance of having a willing ear. Somebody that can give you constructive and valuable feedback on whatever it is you have to say. Therefore, I suggest that psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers plays a more active role within the rehabilitation system, the whole process of rehabilitation of offenders. I do not feel that they are actually prepared for meeting the outside world and the challenges that awaits them, that comes with the stigma of being an ex-offender, being ostracized by society, being placed on a margin. They are not equipped enough to deal with that. And as you can clearly deduct from these interviews, they are just simply dumped onto society with no concern of whether or not they are coping. Hence, many of them turn back to crime. In the walk of life, where on the ladder of success, many of those on the upper rungs often assume and expect that those on the lower rungs should know better. Well, in response to that, I'd love to make a couple of examples concerning my own life and my own experiences with regards to that expectation. During the course of my life, at one point I was arrested for a crime, and while attending court, I was told by a judge that he is finding me guilty for theft of a motor vehicle simply because I had admitted that I was going to leave the car on the side of the road and walk away. According to him, the law of South Africa says that I should have made sure that nothing happened to that car. It was my responsibility to make sure that that car is safe. Well, people, at that time, the safety of the car was the least of my concern. I wanted to distance myself so far from that car and that situation that I didn't think about the safety of a car. The thing that dominated my mind at that time, at that moment, was the fact that I want to get away from the situation where an elderly man wanted to sexually abuse me as a minor. So, sorry to say, but the car was not my concern. But I was found guilty. I was found guilty. Then, in another example that I want to give you, not long after I was released from prison, I had to come up with ways to support myself because I couldn't find a job anywhere. I've sent out so many emails and CVs and applications for jobs, but with the same results. My criminal record automatically disqualified me for any job. And I took it upon myself. I did my research and proceeded to make a loan from the bank and applied for my Code 14 license, which is to drive a truck. And because it was the only field of employment that I could see where your criminal record doesn't really, they don't care as long as you drive their loads. And it's also something that I know I'm good at. I love driving. So I pursued that. Through the grace of God, I got my license, the Code 14 license. And then I was informed that I need to apply for a PDP, which is a public driver's permit that will enable me to transport goods and passengers. So I just want to add here that through the whole process of getting my license, doing the learners and everything, I was very transparent about my past and about the criminal record issue. And I was assured over and over that I will get my license and everything will go well. So I went through the whole process of applying for the PDP. I paid the fees involved. I did everything I had to do, seeing doctors, getting eye tests, and spending money to go all over the show. On the day when I had to go and collect my PDP, I was informed by the clerk that due to my violent criminal record, I do not qualify for a PDP. Needless to say, I was totally disappointed. I was broken because I had invested so much. I asked this clerk, why were you not upfront to me about this from the word get go? Because I mean, even right at the beginning when I did my learners, when I passed out for the code 14, when I applied for the PDP, everywhere I went, I was upfront about my background. And he simply said to me that those on the lower ranks of his office are not privy to the information of his office. So they would not know the information that he knows, which is that I do not qualify. And that is just how the system works. I was so disappointed. I could have used that money to invest in other things. I could have schooled myself. I could have studied further. I could have started a business even because it was a lot of money. And I had to pay back the loan still. So you just imagine the situation I was in. Now, in both of those instances, nobody told me, nobody schooled me. I didn't know certain information prior to those events happening. I had to learn through trial and error. And if I was weak, a weak person in nature, by nature, I would have definitely tried to commit suicide or even decide on taking revenge because I mean I was wronged, right? But let me tell you, through the intervention of a professional, I was able to take a step back and reevaluate the situations and make informed decisions that would not compromise my life and my peace of mind. I could move on from there. I could build a bridge and tell myself that there's hope and that things are not over for me. That is not the end of the world. I wouldn't have been able to do that had it not been for the intervention of a professional. I also know what a big difference it has made in my life after growing up, not having a platform to express myself or that one person that I could speak to. I can now, I cannot stress enough the importance of having that one person that you can talk to. Hence, my suggestion that more psychiatrists, more psychologists, and more social workers be introduced in the mainframe of the rehabilitation system within our prisons. At one time, when I was still incarcerated, I know there was a situation where there was only 4 psychologists and one psychiatrist catering for over 8,000 offenders in one institution. So how is that even effective in terms of addressing the issues of each and every prisoner, even in terms of the social workers. You only get to see them towards the end of your sentence, when it's time for you to get parole or when your sentence is finishing. Then there's standard courses, one or two courses that you need to do, and usually you just copy the answers from someone else. Many of the inmates go through their whole sentence of many, many years, not ever once seeing a psychologist. And I feel strongly that this is a huge contributing factor towards the reoffending of offenders. Of course, there are many other factors, but this is the one that I am addressing in this installment. There was one incident that I would like to mention while I was incarcerated, where a lady decided that she's going to burn her cell. So obviously, the whole place was full of smoke, and the fire would have spread to other areas of the prison had there not been intervention on the part of DCS. But what I would like to mention here is when the emergency response team, better known as TACMAG, when they showed up with batons, tamagotchis, and shock machines, and dogs, and any kind of protection that they thought they needed. And we were filed out of our cells, made to stand in the passages, and anybody, any one of us that said anything was accosted, was assaulted. I wanted to ask something from the officials regarding the whole incident, and before I could even speak two words, one of the emergency task force members came up to me with the shock machine and proceeded to electrocute me. It was a very painful and traumatizing experience, but it happened. And why I'm mentioning that is simply to bring my point across of why I feel that therapy will be much more effective than violence and force. Because I feel that in that situation, for me, according to my reasoning, the proper thing to, to do would be to isolate the perpetrator, the person who started the fire, isolate them, and have them go and see a specialist and sit down and find out why that happened. And take the rest of us and address us in a humane way about the issue. But what they chose to do was totally disrupt the whole community of prisoners, thereby creating rebelliousness and anger in all offenders who was not even part of that fire. We had uproar in the prison for many days after that because of how they handled it. And the person who made the fire really didn't care, and she didn't change her ways because I got shocked or electrocuted, or others were manhandled and beaten and what have you not. Our president, if I may, recently made a statement that he would like to upgrade technology and also invest more in arms or ammunition to combat crime. But I'm saying that updating or upgrading technology and getting more firepower is not going to solve our issue of recidivism or lower our crime rate. Because criminals will find a way to dodge those bullets and to break those codes. That is just the truth of the matter. You see, I'm not here to garner sympathy for criminals. No. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. But what I'm addressing here is very real issues that I feel needs to be talked about. So I thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in my next installment. I trust that it's been informative, and I really do find fulfillment in speaking about these issues, knowing that I've tried at least to make a difference in some small way. So I would like to remind you of the event that is taking place at the Rabasutu Community Hall. If you like books, you are a bookworm, and you love a good book, then that is the place for you to be. Entrance is through reservations only, so you need to call the number on your screen. It is hosted by Mr. Solimanga, and it's called A Celebration of Books and Authors. There will be authors and speakers and guests from all walks of life, and it's going to be a great experience. Then, lastly, I would love to reintroduce Dr. Sandra Hoffman's book, which speaks extensively on the issues of recidivism. It will really benefit you if you can get yourself a copy of that book and familiarize yourself and school yourself with the information that is in it. So the information is up on your screen. Feel free to get yourself a copy. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. You know where to hit that button. And please do leave a comment if you have any suggestions or remarks or even critique. Please feel free to drop a line in the comment section. And most importantly, please share this video if you think it may change the life of someone close and dear to you. I thank you so much.